It's time for the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, a podcast so good it doesn't need a name. So without any further ado, here's your host, JD. Take it away, Johnny.
Whoa, no, don't do that. Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 21 of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. I'm your host, JD, and in today's episode, we will be talking about the Dread operations, Dread Fortress and Dread Palace. I will review them, give you my opinions, what I think. I think they're pretty good. Some stuff that could be better, but overall I like them. I'll go in depth in my first segment. I do not have a second segment, so hopefully someone in the chat can come up with something for me to talk about in the second segment, and then an idea off my personal wall of crazy. That being said, let's force leap right in.
Red 2, I've got a topic coming in hot, requesting clearance to engage.
Lock as foils and attack positions. You are cleared to discuss.
So I think Dread Fortress and Dread Palace have been out long enough where we can start to discuss what we like and what we don't like about them. I think you really need to let operations sit, let all the bugs get fixed, let all the strats be figured out, figure out if there's any way to, cheese any boss fights, things like that, before it's really fair to give your honest opinions on something. So, I think that Dread Fortress and Dread Palace are my second favorite tier of operations, only behind Explosive Conflict. I think Explosive Conflict was my favorite operation in the game so far, and possibly my favorite operation that I've ever done, really. I mean, Old War was pretty good, but I kind of got into Wrath a little late for Old War, so I didn't really see a ton of it. But yeah, I mean, Explosive Conflict was great, but Dread Fortress and Dread Palace are definitely a step up from S&V and TFB. I liked TFB and I liked S&V, but I think Dread Fortress and Dread Palace are just a cut above those. I really like the Dread Masters. I think they are all excellent boss fights. Great mechanics in all of them. Very interesting. That probably makes Dread Palace a little bit higher on my list than Dread Fortress, but I also like that there's a nice stepping stone from one to the next. I think Nephra is a joke as a boss. It definitely needs one or two more mechanics. But entrance bosses have always been kind of simple and easy, so it is good to have something to let players get their feet wet. And I really like the Gate Commander Draxus, because it definitely puts your group to the test. Right after that easy boss, it says, alright, your playtime's over, you gotta step it up and really hit these mechanics, which is pretty cool. If I had my way, I would switch Grobthok and Draxus, because I think that makes the step ladder a little bit more interesting. For some reason, they love putting really difficult second bosses. It happens in Dread Palace, actually, too. I think Raptus is probably the hardest of the first four in there, too. So, I don't know why they like making that second boss the wall boss, but I love the Draxus. I keep wanting to say Draxus. When I was filming with Boss Guide, I probably said Draxus and had to cut it like 15 times. It's Draxus, not Jiraxus. The one from, WoW, in Trial of the Crusader. So I love the fact that Draxus has some great ads, great ad phases, you have to deal with lots of different things going on at once. Everyone kind of has their own unique thing to do, which makes everyone responsible for something different, which is very cool. And Grobthok, on the other hand, kind of boring, don't love him, but it's very cool. I like it in concept, but I'm not a big fan of it as, a fun, enjoyable encounter. It's pretty drab and boring, which is why I would switch it. But if you're going to do an easy boss, I think Grobthok is the way to do it. Nephra is not the way to do an easy boss. An easy boss should be at least interesting somewhat, so that even though you're blazing right through it, you feel like you're getting something out of it. It's enjoyable, it's fun, which is why Grobthok is cool. It's a giant mechanical rancor, which you have to take his hand when he has a pipe and stick it to a magnet. That's awesome. That's a cool idea. Just saying that to your friend. If your friend was like, why do you play Star Wars The Old Republic? What's fun about it? What's cool? And you say, well, there's a fight where you take a rancor, and when he picks up a big metal pipe, you have to take him to a giant magnet and stick his hand to it. That's cool. It's very Star Warsy. I like that encounter. Nephra, on the other hand, what is there to say about Nephra? Oh, guys jump down and explode? Yeah, that's cool. Oh, he's got a big cleave. Oh, that's really interesting. Definitely an enjoyable boss fight. So, I definitely prefer Grobthok to Nephra, and would switch Grobthok and Draxus. Now, Corruptor Zero is one interesting case, because it was pretty, it was meh, it was okay, it was somewhat difficult, not extremely difficult, and then they did something, I don't know what they did, they just randomly changed something, and made it really, really easy. I don't know what happened there, I think it was a mistake, I assume it was a mistake, but they made it really easy. The mines wouldn't explode for some reason, mines weren't going out, mines were stacking to ridiculous numbers, I don't know. So, it was really easy there, and then all of a sudden they changed it again, and now it's actually really difficult. It's one of the harder encounters, for sure. I'd say 3 or 4 in terms of difficulty on encounters. It's pretty damn hard. So I like that they're willing to fix things, but I just wish they would fix them properly and get it right the first time. Just like, they have a really bad reputation for changing something completely unrelated and just ruining the encounters. I don't know why this happens so often. It happened on, I don't know, it happens on tons of bosses where things would bleed down. Kephis comes to mind with the droid dudes. All of a sudden they change something and everything's different. I don't know what happens. I'm not going to pretend to know. I'm not a game designer, but it seems like it happens way more in SWTOR than any other game. So I wish that they would maybe test more. They could obviously use some more QA testers right here if you want to hire me. Anyway, I think it would be really beneficial to them if they got their fights proper and right the first time. And it's okay if you need to fix something. Just, if you fix it right the first time. Don't just constantly iterate and change how you have to deal with the fight because you're changing mechanics and fixing bugs and yada yada yada. Just get it right the first time. I give you one extra chance, fix it, and then I'm going to blame you for it. So, I hope going forward that bosses are better tuned and have less bugs. I think that's everyone in the PvE's dream. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. And finally, Dreadmaster Brontes is a very cool encounter, I think. Very interesting, lots of stuff going on. Lots of personal responsibility. You need to make sure you're picking up your tentacles in there. You have to make sure you're getting near the tentacles. It seems like once you get the mechanics down on this fight, you just fly right through it. And it's a total mechanics fight. It's not really a numbers fight. I do like that they have 2 different operations, so they can do many different things. They have a numbers fight in the other encounter. They have a mechanics fight in here. And Dreadmaster Brontes has a lot of cool mechanics. The one with the 2 tentacles that form the heart shape, that's really cool. You have Kephis coming back again, even though it's not really Kephis, it's just a mini Kephis. It's still cool to see him. I hope we're done with him. And I hope we're done with the whole Dreadmaster thing. I'm really done with the Dreadmasters, but we'll come back to that. Maybe in the second topic I'll talk about that. So, Dreadmaster Brontes is really cool. I really like the end when she's flying around. She's like an enormous floating Dreadmaster. Like, this fight really feels like an MMO fight to me, though. It doesn't really feel like a Star Wars fight to me. I don't know if anybody else gets that. A lot of these encounters feel like your stock WoW operations, whereas past operations like Scum and Villainy and Explosive Conflict really felt like Star Wars operations to me. I hope that we see another Star Wars-y operation coming next. We have no idea what's coming next, actually, which is pretty exciting, but also a little worrying. We'll see where that goes. It sounded like they didn't want to spoil anything at the Cantina. Maybe they've changed their mind at this point. They've locked something down, but I would like to see something more Star Wars-y going forward. It's cool to get this magical, mystical stuff out of the way, kill off our gods, move on to the next chapter. So, cool with that. And let's move over to the Dread Palace, and we'll look at those bosses there. Dreadmaster Bestia is a very cool fight. I like the ad control part. I like that everyone has their own thing to handle. You have different people doing different kinds of ads. Tank swapping is a big thing. It's not too hard. It's not too easy. I think this is a very well-tuned fight and a very good first encounter for a second-tier operation. If you've gone through, half of Dread Fortress and want to try out Dread Palace, you should be able to get Bestia down if you can get down Draxus or Corruptor. Maybe you can't do Bestia, but you're saying, I want to try out a couple different bosses, something new, something different. I think Dread Palace is a great way to start, and I think Bestia is a great place to start. Moving on to Tyrannus. Tyrannus is a really, really tank-focused fight. If you want to be able to down this consistently, it is 100% on your tanks. Your tanks need to be on point and know exactly what the mechanics are. There are a lot of fights where tanks can get by just saying, okay, I have to swap when, okay, I don't want to face him towards the raid, okay, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z. This fight is very unique in that it really tests your tank's knowledge of the fight, and I think that's really cool. Your tanks have to know exactly where to be positioned before they taunt. They have to know where fire is going out. They have to be aware of where fire is going to be on them, which tiles are going to drop. I love this fight. I think it's a really interesting and cool fight, and I started tanking it, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's something different, because a lot of times tanking is pretty boring in operations. So I'd say half of the fights, let's go back to the other operation and see what fights are boring for tanks. Nephra is stone cold boring for tanks. Draxus there's a little something to do, but it's really on the DPS and the healers taking care of stuff. Grobthok, sort of, there's a little kiting for the tanks, but picking up ads, nothing really interesting to do. Corruptor Zero can be alright, I guess. Not really, it's really a stack and taunt fight. And Brontes is a cool tank fight. So in Dread Fortress, there's really one interesting tank fight, and it's the last boss. So it's cool that we have this really cool tank fight in the second position on this fight. And if you're a tank, and you're a good tank, you should love doing this fight. This is your jam right here, is Dreadmaster Tyrannus. And then moving on to Caliphris. Such a cool idea, a cool fight. I don't know how any pubs ever do this operation. Caliphus seems impossible if you only have to deal with text. Maybe on story mode is doable, but hard mode, you better be in Mumble or Vent or TeamSpeak or whatever you use, because some crazy stuff's happening. I love that it's all about communication. The fight's really not that hard, but if you're not communicating well, if you don't know exactly what your counterpart is saying, you're just going to fail outright. Straight up kill you. Cool stuff. I like the past-future mechanic. I like that vibe. But again, this is another fight that just doesn't feel Star Wars to me. This feels like something I would be doing in WoW with like a really evil mage that can manipulate time. I feel like I've done that in WoW. So, cool fight, cool idea. Not really SWTOR, if you ask me. So, moving on to Dreadmaster Raptus, who is interesting. I like the idea of having the different tests for different groups. I just wish it was a little bit more interesting inside. I mean, the DPS have to go in and DPS a dude. The healers have to go in and heal a dude. It would be a lot more interesting, I think, if you had to, do something while you were doing something. So you have to heal, but you also have to go through a maze. Or you have to, you have to tank, but you also have to kill 3 ads. Something where you're not just sitting there, okay, I'm doing what I'm doing all the time. Doing what I'm doing all the time. This is no different. This is basically a normal fight, except my ally is, an NPC or something. It's not super engaging. It can be very hectic with the knockbacks and the laser tail and all that good stuff can be extremely hectic, but overall, I think it's a decent fight, and it could be improved, but it definitely could be worse. For a 4th boss, meh, but it is what it is. I can deal with that. And then you have the Dread Council. This is the only boss that I have not completed on hard mode. I have done a few attempts on it, probably gotten a day's worth of wipes in it, and seems interesting. I don't really know what goes on in the later phases of the fight, but lots of different stuff going on, tons of stuff. This is another one of those fights where everyone has to know what everyone else is doing so you understand what you should be doing. Just like That's how Tyrannus is on the tanks. You have to understand everything that's going on so you can do your job. That's what Dread Council is on everyone. Everyone has to know what everyone is doing so you can do your one job, which is really cool. I think Dread Council definitely ranks up there in the more difficult fights that we've had in the game. On hard mode, not counting nightmare modes. On hard mode, I definitely think that Dread Council ranks in there with, you know, all the other good ones. Explosive Conflict, Kephis, Dreadmaster Styrax, so that's pretty cool. So overall, I think the Dread Palace and Dread Fortress are cool, but not Star Wars enough for me. I would like to see a million more Scum and Villainies and Explosive Conflicts before I see another Dread Palace and Dread Fortress. If you haven't tried these out, definitely try them out in story mode. Even if you don't really like operations, they're cool areas to see. You should definitely check them out. They're not too difficult where you can't pug it in Fleet or in Oricon, so just give it a shot, see where it goes. I really don't like the fact that they didn't put these in the group finder to start. Like I said, from the community canteen, I spoke with Andrew Horowitz, and he said that it is more than just, you know, flipping a switch and putting them on there. There's a ton of internal problems with the system. I don't know how true or what that actually means, but I'll take his word for it. But I really wish they would get them in there. I think that every operation should be in story mode group finders, that you can go in and see the content as easily and as painlessly as possible, because it's story mode, and that's where you are supposed to be getting your story. And there's some cool story in here. There aren't many cutscenes, but just the look and feel of the places are cool, and some of the dialogue things that happen are very interesting. So definitely check these out if you're interested at all in the story, if you're interested at all in PvP, or if you want to, you know, dip your toe into PvP. You can definitely do this. So give it a shot. Dread Palace and Dread Fortress are very cool places. That's all there is to say. Alrighty, and welcome back. So, for the second segment this week, I've trolled through the chat, and I've decided that I will be talking about SWTOR's second anniversary, memories, and what I'd like to see for their second anniversary. This was suggested by someone in the chat that I do not remember. And, who is it? Whoever it was, thank you. If you want to say something in the chat, go ahead and holler. So, SWTOR's second anniversary is coming up. I was talking about this in the stream. It is unbelievable that this game has been out for almost 2 years now. And I think this second anniversary is a great opportunity to get players back in the game. You will have Galactic Starfighter in there. You'll have the thing that people have been clamoring for a long time. What do I think we could see for the SWTOR second anniversary? Well, first, I think that Galactic Starfighter is going to be a huge, huge success. Now, I'm not saying that I've seen it, but I think it's going to be awesome. So, what I will say is Galactic Starfighter is an opportunity for BioWare to get players who aren't necessarily MMOers into the game. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. This is your opportunity to get the non-MMO players playing something that they would have never tried before, and then maybe hook them into your MMO. I think it's great, and I really hope that the space game is playable from level 1. Because then those players can get in there, they don't have to watch any story that they don't want to see to begin with. You can get your friends in there, and just bam, straight into space. That's awesome. I know many, many people who would love to see X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, but would never play an MMO. if this is X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, and they get an MMO on top of it, you know, one leads to the other. It's like a gateway drug. Who doesn't like gateway drugs? Don't do drugs, kids. But really, it would be awesome if something for the anniversary was like a one-day special or something where you can buy into Galactic Starfighter for maybe the cost of a subscription, or maybe more, maybe $20, because it's a sub bonus, really. But what if you sold just one-day special on the anniversary, you sell early access into Starfighter? I think it would be a great way to make money, and I think it would be a cool idea. What else would I like to see? The Rackle Plague is something that has been hinted at, mined at, and honestly, I'm going to say it now, I 100% believed that we were going to get the Galactic Starfighter during the Halloween event. I was speaking to Damien Schubert, and he said to me, we will definitely not be seeing the Rackle Plague on Halloween. This was the exact conversation that I had with him. I don't know if Halloween was directly announced, but I think he said, like a day like Halloween, or something like that. Something that was directly referencing Halloween, very obviously, so I thought we were seeing the Rackle Plague, which is why I was playing it so coy everywhere. I guess I was wrong. Maybe they've decided to push it off, but if they do decide to push it off, let's see it for the second anniversary. An anniversary is a great time to get publicity for doing nothing. All you have to do is be around for another year, and you get an anniversary. The anniversary is just a great time to get publicity for doing nothing. You know, Massively is going to celebrate the 2-year anniversary of SWTOR. You know, IGN might have something on it. Smaller websites, maybe MMO Champion. I'll definitely celebrate it. Other podcasts will definitely celebrate it. So it's something that gets talked about and gets you buzz, and you don't have to do anything. So why not try and grab people back with things they will like or things they've liked in the past? And the Rackle Plague is one of those things. People love the Rackle Plague. That was one of the shining moments of SWTOR. If it comes back, maybe some people who loved it the first time say, hey, I'll try this game out again. And maybe some people who heard about the publicity from the Rackle Plague and how good it was, they remember it, but didn't get to try it, weren't playing SWTOR then. It's 2 years later, maybe they're not playing WoW anymore. Maybe they're bored with WoW. Maybe they're not playing Rift anymore. Maybe they have a open spot for an MMO. Maybe they come in and try the Rackle Plague that they've heard so much about and heard so many good things about. So, all good things, and I really hope we see a awesome subscriber appreciation benefit during the 1-year anniversary. I think that would be really cool. A nice title, obviously, would be cool. They've done that before. They can do that again. Some kind of title for being in the game for so long. And some kind of cartel benefit would be cool. Maybe we get the 50% subscriber discount for the 2-year anniversary. What if we got a 1-day sale where all cartel coin purchases were 50% off? That would be pretty cool, right? Would they do it? Probably not. Something tells me they wouldn't do something like that. But that would be pretty cool. I would pay maybe $100 to get a bunch of cartel coins all in one day. That's $100 you're dropping. Just me, and I'm not a person who buys a ton of cartel coins. Imagine what the real whales would buy on a 50% off sale. And I think sales are something that they really haven't taken full advantage of yet. I know they are doing more frequent sales on the cartel market, but they're not... I'll be honest, I don't think they're pushing enough with them. You know, there should be a big pop-up when you log in saying, X thing is on sale, this is cool, try it, and it's 1-day only sale. That's how you get people in to something that they wouldn't necessarily buy. When you go to the Steam page, what happens? A big screen pops up with the game saying, for today, this is the game that's off, or this is the new thing. And that's what they should do with the cartel market. In your login screen, I know some people might hate it. They'll be like, oh my god, look at this. They're advertising on the loading screens, and they're putting stuff in my face, they're shoving it in my face, they make me want to buy things. Whatever, tough. That's what happens. Happens every time. It's amazing the things that Steam gets away with that no one else gets away with. Stuff like DRM. Steam has built-in DRM. Never heard anyone mention it before. Stuff like the shoving products in your face. Because they have good sales every once in a while, they get away with whatever they want. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Steam. I have 200 games in Steam, but some stuff that they do, other companies like BioWare and EA couldn't get away with. But I think they should try it, and why not? Put the giant pumpkin on the the login screen. Is there anything wrong with that? Or the server login screen. That would be a good place to put it. On the left side, you have your character's portrait, you have your list of characters, and then on the left side, why not have deal of the day, and that's your cartel market deal, and maybe it even has a button that you can buy cartel coins at. Why the hell not? The second anniversary is something that I'm excited for the many things that could happen, and we'll see what actually does happen. I am extremely excited to finally get to play proper space in my... To play proper space in my space MMO. So, it'll be very cool to finally get to play that. Rackle Plague would be very cool if that came back. I personally don't think... If it comes back the exact same way, I would be very disappointed. I've heard from the one and only SWTOR miner, as well as some other data miners out there. Pretty much Wirt and SWTOR miner are the only two miners that I know of. The only ones I read, anyway. And they've kind of come out and said that it's probably not the same event, as they're saying in chat right now, which is cool. So, I'm excited to see what they do with it, because a story-based event like that is a very cool idea. And if they do change it up, I think it will be a nice change from the recurring events that we've been getting so far. You know, the Gree event that is the exact same way every time it comes back. The Bounty Hunter event, exact same way every time it comes back. It would be cool if the Rackle Plague was kind of this rotating event that has like a little bit of a different story taste every time, a little bit of a different flair every time, maybe a different location. Maybe quests are similar or the same, but, you know, different... Just put different window dressing on the same thing, you know? A salad is a salad, you put a different dressing on it, makes it a totally different food. So, I'm excited to see what they could do and what happens with that. So, thank you whoever was in chat that gave me that idea for the second topic of today. I'm really burning through this live show here. I think we will take another break so I can collect a idea for the Wall of Crazy. Maybe I'll do two since there are a bunch of people in chat right now. And then we will end the show. So here we're going to take another break and we're going to go to another musical number.
What? That's impossible even for a computer. It's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
Wall of Crazy topic this week is going to also come from the chat. This is something that I have talked about before, but I've had a new wrinkle added to it. So, the idea that space is not built for PvE. That's a little upsetting. Something I've talked about many times is the fact that I would love to see operations based in space, or if not, you know, something where you're in space in an operation group. Something like you have to fight to the planet. My idea, as I've said many times, was that EV should have started with a giant space battle where you have to fight your way through the defense systems of Balmora, or not Balmora, Belsavis. You have to fight your way through the planetary defense systems on Belsavis just to land. And then, at the end, there's a cutscene, ship gets hit, and then you're on the bridge of the ship, and you have to drop into the drop pods into the planet. So, obviously, we probably won't see something like that for a long time. I think there has been a huge push towards something like that. There's definitely been many petitions, many people saying on the forums, something I'd like to see. And as Damien said, if it's something that people really want to see, they can push it up in the queue a little bit. Not necessarily anytime soon, but, you know, maybe 2 expansions from now is what I would guess the possible timetable would be for it. That being said, there is no reason, in my eyes, why they couldn't have a PvE, ground PvE, mixed in with your space-based PvP, sorry. Your ground PvP mixed in with your space-based PvP. You have a big space battle that's going on, while there's also a ground fight going on, and what you do in space assists your ground team, and what you do on the ground could assist your space team. Now, I don't know how the best way to do it is. Maybe you have 4 people on the ground, 4 people in space, or maybe you have a full 12v12 and an 8v8 on the ground. That would be cool. It would require a lot of players, probably not something that we would see, which is why I would lean probably more towards a 4v4 in space versus a 4v4 in the ground. But I still think that's a really cool idea. You're on the ground knocking out shield generators so the space people can go in and do a trench run and destroy a bomber or a big ship. SWTOR Miner in the chat room is saying that landing in Galactic Starfighter would be cool and you could pop out, which would also be a cool idea for a space thing. You know, you're doing something on the ground and then you have to have a couple people take off in a ship and then they can land back and do different things like that. I think that's a really cool idea. What really excites me about space is it's so open and there's so many things that I feel like they could do that I'm probably setting myself up for a little bit of letdown with what I finally get, but I'm very excited for the modularity of space. You know, there are so many different facets of space that can be explored in so many different ways. It might actually be too much, and that might be a bad thing, where it's too modular and you can do too much stuff in space, which causes them to not really know what they want to do. They're not really sure what they want to focus on, so they end up scattershotting in a lot of different areas, and they end up, you know, not being, you know, good with anything would be really enjoyable. But I think the idea of having space and ground going on at the same time is a very Star Wars idea. Just think of how the Return of the Jedi ended. You had ground team, space team working together, one had to help the other out, and then one had to finish the battle. Something like that in space would be awesome. We know that ground PvP is going to be a separate queue from space PvP, but maybe if you are doing space PvP, there will be an option to check yourself for ground PvP, and you can get into special war zones that are just ground and space combined, which would be really cool in my opinion. So thank you very much, SWTOR Miner, for that wonderful Wall of Crazy. That was you, right? For that wonderful Wall of Crazy suggestion, if that was indeed you. And I think that'll about do it for the show. This is my very first live show, so if you see any rough edges, that is probably why. Well, if you see any rough edges, you're probably looking at your desk, but if you hear any, you know, rough corners or bad cuts, it's probably because it's a live show, so there's a lot more mistakes and stuff to cut out. So, I would like to tell everyone in the chat room and everyone listening at home, the Extra Life charity event is going on right now. If you are in the chat room, you are going to be seeing the Extra Life charity event once this episode shuts down. I think I'll be doing maybe a little Lego Star Wars Saga. I was thinking about watching the movies during the stream, but I was thinking what is better than watching the movies? Playing the movies. What's better than playing the movies? Playing them as Legos. So I will be playing Lego Star Wars coming up right after this. I have links to the charity event. Will be in the show notes on GadgetGaming.com. Will also be on the stream. You can see it right here in this corner up here. I think I'm pointing the right spot. No, other spot. This one. This corner. Over here. There we go. If you want to donate, any amount of money is good. As always, if you'd like to contact me, you can send your questions, comments, and concerns to gadekteague.crr@gmail.com, or you can tweet them to @gteague on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes to get weekly podcast updates. If you're new to the game or thinking of resubscribing, I have provided my Refer a Friend link in the show notes, so if you'd like a little added incentive to come back to the game, feel free to use it. You can also check out my new website, gadgetgaming.com. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. This is JD, signing off.